In the heart of Paris, where space is scarce and history is sacred, architectural brilliance is often born from limitation. This video explores how a clever architect transformed a compact Paris apartment into a true design masterpiece. Not through excess, but through intelligence, proportion, and restraint. This is a story of spatial genius, where every decision is deliberate, every centimeter respected, and beauty emerges from thoughtful architectural thinking rather than size. Before stepping inside, we must understand the building's urban setting. Nestled within a dense Parisian block, the apartment sits among classic Haussmann facades, narrow streets, and centuries of architectural continuity. This context shapes every design decision. The architect did not treat the apartment as an isolated object, but as part of a larger architectural dialogue with the city, history, and Parisian lifestyle. The building's exterior remains untouched, honoring Paris's strict preservation rules. Stone facades, tall windows, and wrought iron details set a dignified tone. The architect understood that the transformation must occur inside, without disrupting the building's historical identity. This respect for architectural heritage becomes the foundation for the interior design language: classic, restrained, and timeless. Inside the building, the shared corridor is modest and narrow. Rather than rushing through it, the architect treated the transition as part of the experience. Subtle lighting, calm materials, and visual alignment guide visitors toward the apartment entrance. This moment prepares the mind, signaling that thoughtful design awaits beyond the door, even within a limited footprint. Crossing into the apartment, the threshold becomes a powerful moment. Instead of clutter, the architect created a calm, framed entry that immediately establishes order. Clean lines, controlled color tones, and architectural symmetry give the illusion of space. The entrance does not overwhelm, it reassures. This first gesture sets the intellectual tone for the entire interior. Originally, the apartment suffered from typical small space problems: fragmented rooms, poor circulation, and underutilized corners. The architect began by stripping the layout back to its bones. Walls were evaluated not emotionally, but logically. Every partition had to justify its existence. This analytical process allowed space to breathe again, without expanding the apartment's actual size. Instead of many thin divisions, the architect introduced fewer but stronger spatial elements. These architectural anchors define zones without enclosing them. Partial walls, aligned openings, and visual axes replace traditional room boundaries. This strategy allows light, air, and movement to flow freely, creating a sense of generosity rarely associated with small Paris apartments. Natural light becomes the most valuable design material in this project. Existing windows are fully respected and visually amplified. The architect aligns sightlines directly toward light sources, ensuring no space feels forgotten. Reflective surfaces, pale finishes, and controlled contrasts help light bounce deeper into the apartment, expanding perceived volume without artificial tricks. Rather than hiding modest ceiling heights, the architect celebrates vertical proportions. Door frames extend upward, moldings draw the eye higher, and lighting is carefully recessed. This vertical emphasis creates elegance and balance. Even in small rooms, the sense of height evokes classical Parisian apartments, reinforcing a feeling of dignity and spatial intelligence. The interior palette is intentionally restrained. Soft neutrals, warm stone tones, light wood, and subtle plastered textures dominate the space. By limiting material variety, the architect avoids visual noise. Each surface complements the next, allowing the architecture to speak quietly. This calm cohesion makes the apartment feel larger, calmer, and more luxurious. The living space acts as the apartment's central heart. Rather than assigning rigid functions, the architect designed flexibility. Seating, circulation, and visual focus coexist harmoniously. Furniture is scaled precisely to the room, never overpowering it. This balance allows the living area to adapt, hosting guests, relaxing, or visually connecting with adjacent spaces. Custom built-ins replace bulky freestanding furniture. Storage is integrated into walls, benches, and niches, disappearing into the architecture. This approach reduces clutter while increasing functionality. The architect designs furniture as architecture, ensuring every element aligns with proportions, materials, and sight lines. The result is a space that feels intentional rather than furnished. The dining area occupies a modest footprint, but feels deliberate and elegant. A compact table, carefully positioned lighting, and architectural framing give it importance. Instead of isolating the dining function, it flows naturally within the living space. This integration reflects contemporary Parisian living, intimate, flexible, and socially connected. The kitchen proves that efficiency can be beautiful. Every cabinet, appliance, and surface is meticulously planned. Clean lines, handle-less fronts, and integrated storage maintain visual calm. The architect prioritizes ergonomics, ensuring smooth movement despite limited space. The kitchen feels like a crafted object rather than a compressed utility zone. Throughout the apartment, continuity is key. Flooring runs uninterrupted, color transitions are subtle, and architectural details repeat rhythmically. This consistency prevents visual fragmentation. Even as functions change from living to cooking to resting, the space feels unified, like a single architectural composition unfolding gradually rather than disconnected rooms. What was once a narrow corridor becomes an active architectural feature. Storage, lighting, and proportions transform it into a functional gallery. The architect refuses to waste circulation space, turning movement into experience. This reimagining reflects spatial genius, seeing potential where others see limitation. The bedroom prioritizes rest through simplicity. Soft textures, muted colors, and balanced symmetry create tranquility. Storage is concealed, and visual clutter is eliminated. The architect ensures the room feels protective rather than cramped. Despite its size, the bedroom offers emotional spaciousness, a quiet retreat within the city. Even the bed's position is architectural. It aligns with windows, walls, and lighting to reinforce balance. Rather than pushing furniture randomly, the architect treats placement as composition. This discipline creates harmony, allowing the room to feel intentional and refined rather than improvised. The bathroom exemplifies how small spaces can feel indulgent. High-quality materials, minimal joints, and thoughtful lighting elevate the experience. The architect uses mirrors strategically to expand perception, while concealed storage maintains cleanliness. Every detail serves comfort, proving luxury is not about size but about precision. Artificial lighting is layered carefully throughout the apartment. Ambient, task, and accent lighting work together to shape mood. Fixtures are discreet, integrated into architecture rather than dominating it. The lighting enhances textures and volumes, allowing the apartment to transform from day to night with subtle elegance. Rather than bold colors, the architect uses tonal variation to create depth. Soft contrasts define zones without visual disruption. This strategy preserves calm while giving each area its own identity. The apartment feels cohesive yet nuanced, a hallmark of sophisticated interior design. Storage is not added, it is designed. Every item has a designated location, reducing visual chaos. The architect understands that true spaciousness comes from order. By hiding necessities within the architecture, the apartment remains visually light and mentally calming, reinforcing a sense of control and clarity. Beyond what we see, the architect considers what we feel. Acoustic treatments, soft materials, and layout decisions reduce noise and echo. This attention to sensory comfort enhances livability. Good architecture is not only visual, it supports well-being in subtle, often invisible ways. Furniture choices respect the architecture. Pieces are low profile, refined, and appropriately scaled. Nothing shouts for attention. Instead, furniture supports the spatial narrative. This restraint ensures the apartment feels curated rather than crowded, allowing architecture to remain the true protagonist. Decor is used sparingly and meaningfully. Art, objects, and textiles are selected for emotional resonance rather than abundance. Each element contributes to the story. This disciplined approach reflects architectural maturity, understanding that absence can be as powerful as presence. The apartment feels larger not because of tricks but because of logic. Proportion, alignment, and hierarchy do the work. The architect avoids gimmicks, relying instead on timeless principles. This is spatial genius rooted in understanding how humans perceive and inhabit space. Despite its contemporary clarity, the apartment feels undeniably Parisian. Classical proportions, subtle moldings, and balanced symmetry honor tradition. The architect bridges past and present, creating a home that feels rooted yet relevant, a dialogue between history and modern living. This project redefines small space living. It proves that quality of space matters more than quantity. Through thoughtful design, the apartment supports daily life gracefully. It encourages calm, order, and appreciation for detail, values deeply aligned with Parisian culture. The greatest lesson here is mindset. Constraints are not obstacles but opportunities. By thinking architecturally, prioritizing structure, proportion, and flow, any small space can become extraordinary. This project teaches us to design smarter, not bigger. In the end, this small Paris apartment becomes a design masterpiece, not because of luxury materials or dramatic gestures, but because of intelligence. It reflects what happens when architecture leads interior design. Through clarity, restraint, and respect for space, a clever architect transforms limitation into timeless elegance.